All right, hello everyone, and welcome to our Choosing an MCAT exam date session. We are super excited that you're all here joining us. I see a number of you who are already here. We've got two chats, so say hello and introduce yourself, where you're joining us from in the chat that says introduce yourself. And then if you have questions kind of as we go here tonight, feel free to drop those into the Ask a Question chat. This is a lot of information, but at the same time, this is a session for you, so we want to hear your questions is what it comes down to. My colleague Emily's here, who just said hello as well. So we've got a couple of folks here who can help you with this process as we go through. A couple things, just some housekeeping, if it will, if you want to call it that. We've got our big MapCon event coming this Sunday, so highly encourage you to join us. It is completely free. It is not Sunday. I don't know why I said Sunday. It's Saturday, September 13th. Not on Sunday. My head is somewhere else. So mapcon.com is the place to go. Saturday, September 13th. It's all day, completely free. We've got all sorts of great sessions lined up. We have sessions that have med school deans, all sorts of information about your application, personal statements, et cetera, et cetera. So please join us for part of it, for all of it, as it were. We even have a session about the MCAT as it were coming up on Saturday. So lots of fun stuff. That all being said, we also have plenty of events that we do here related to the application process, related to the MCAT, related to all things getting into med school. So check us out at premedevents.com. This will not be the last time that we talk about selecting an MCAT test date. It is the first time that we were talking about it this year for 2026 test dates. So feel free to join us in the future for all sorts of fun stuff. And then also check us out on our YouTube channel, because every single event that we do is on the YouTube channel, including MCAT office hours, which will resume in a couple weeks. So we're going to go on a little bit of a hiatus for a couple of weeks while I'm actually out of town, and then we'll be back in October to continue those on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock Eastern time. So that's what's on the docket. So we're going to dive right on in. See a lot of folks said hello. So hello to everybody. Got everybody's coming in from different places. So super great. We are going to talk today about registering for the MCAT, but more importantly, choosing the MCAT test date. And the reason why this is important, and I'm glad you're all here, plain and simple, is that while it might seem relatively simple, you're thinking, oh, I just got to choose a day that I'm available and I'm going to go take my MCAT on that day. It's actually a little bit more complex, because there's a lot of factors that you need to consider when selecting your MCAT test date, right? It's not just cut and dry, oh, I want to take it on this day and I'm just going to go sign up and take it. It's really, there are a lot of factors that come into play. And so hopefully this will start to get you thinking about it. We've got a lot of time. Registration doesn't open for a while, so now's a good time to start weighing these factors in terms of what it is that you need to be considering for selecting that test date. So then when registration does open up, you'll be set to go as far as the process itself is concerned. So first things first, what we have to look at and what we have to consider, of course, are the logistics. So just so that everybody's on the same page, they have announced the test dates for 2026. It's on the AMC website. I am going to show you the calendar that the AMC has published on their website. They do the best job of making a calendar, so no reason to reinvent the wheel. Full credit to them for putting that calendar up. So just something that you can have access to whenever it is that you need access to. It's there. It's on their website. So please use it as it were. But when we're looking at the registration opening dates, it's a period of time. And the period of time is October 21st to October 23rd. So it's not as simple to say that, oh, registration opens on October 21st. The registration opens on October 21st for what are referred to as Group A testing centers. Now, Group A testing centers are pretty much those located in the eastern half of the United States. The Group B testing centers are the western half of the United States. Now, they've got a great map on their website So you can go and find out where your testing center, which state your testing center is in, and which group it falls into. Group C is the easy one. That's pretty much anything that's not in the United States. So Canada, all international locations, Puerto Rico, all in Group C. So that's anything that's not in one of the 50 states or Washington, D.C. That's going to be the Group C testing centers. So those are the three categories. Now, what that means is that registration opens on that date, and it will remain open, right? So once registration opens, it doesn't close until sometime in September, right? So you're going to be fine in terms of that registration opening. That being said, they're doing things a little bit differently this year. So up until now, when registration would open in October, it would be for the January through June exam dates. And they would have another registration that would open in February that would be for the summer dates. So the July, August, and September test dates. This year, they have scrapped that plan for the first time. Everything is going to be open, at least from everything that we can see on their website. Everything's going to be open for all 2026 exams. So it does change the dynamics a little bit. And the main dynamic that it changes is that before, if you were thinking of testing over the summertime, you would just wait until February to register. Now you can, in fact, register on October 21st, 22nd, whatever the day may be, which may mean that there will be a higher demand on the actual registration system day of registration. So we don't know what's going to happen, right? I don't want to make any assumptions as far as, outages and all those things, because I'm sure this has been load tested and everything will be just fine, but just something to be aware of. What it also means, though, is that in the past, if you were thinking about testing in the summertime, you had a little bit more time to potentially consider when your test date was going to be. Now you're going to have to make that decision a little bit earlier on, because there is always the potential of the test dates filling up. I mean, you talk about, there's some pretty famous people out there right now who have concerts or who had concerts recently that sold out very quickly. This is almost the same thing, right? Sometimes it feels like it's easier to get tickets to a really famous person's concert versus, just registering for the MCAT. So just something to keep in mind as you're starting to consider when your test date is going to ultimately be, and when it is that you're thinking of testing. The other thing to consider in terms of the logistics, and this is some kind of preemptive work that you can be starting to do, is one, getting familiar with what the calendar is going to look like. So this is the testing calendar. This is from the AMC. Again, full credit to them. So thank you. That's my citation to them for creating this calendar. But one thing that you also want to understand is kind of where the distribution is of these test dates. And what you'll notice is that pretty much MCAT is offered only on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. So there are, no Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, Sunday exams. So that is something also to consider as far as like days of the week, and of course, the seasonality of things. What is new for this year? Again, this really only applies if you've gone through this process before. You'll remember this. There never was a February test date for this version of the MCAT. There were February test dates for the previous version when they were actually changing the test. They did some February test dates, but this is the first time that they have a February test date. All they've done is put a test date in February. They haven't necessarily added more examination dates. They've merely just moved one over into the February date. This is purely from a anecdotal perspective. Like, I have no hard data to share with you, but I've had a lot of conversations over the last couple of weeks since these test dates were released, and a lot of students have expressed interest in testing in February. So I'm starting to get a feeling that the February test date is going to be a pretty popular one, despite the fact that it's being offered on a Friday, and that Friday happens to be the 13th of the month. But just something to something to consider is that it's starting to already, I'm just getting a sense. I have a lot of conversations with a lot of students, a lot of organizations, a lot of schools, and I'm just hearing this February date becoming popular as far as these conversations. Again, no hard data. We'll see if my gut feeling was correct. I guess in about 6 weeks or so when registration actually opens, but that's what's kind of been on my mind in terms of that date itself is concerned. So that being said, let's take a look at a couple things to consider. And again, that calendar is available, and we'll actually be using that calendar here in a bit. These are, I think, the top kind of 5 things that you need to factor into the equation, if you will. And everyone's story is going to be a little different. So if you've got kind of questions more specific to your situation, by all means, feel free to type those into the chat, and I'll answer them as best as I can. You can just put them in the into the chat and ask those questions. Pega, you can hope that they offer other test dates between September and December. That is not happening. As of right now, that has not happened in 10 years. It is more likely than not going to be an offering, namely because the test dates are aligned with the application cycle, and offering an exam in October. Well, let me rephrase it. They do offer September test dates, but offering exams in October, November, and December really don't align with the application cycle, and so I would highly doubt that be the case. But then again, you never know. We might be surprised one day and they go, you know what, the MCAT's offered these times of year. What part of what dictates this also is that the MCAT is administered at a testing center that is not owned by the AMC. So it's also the capacity that those testing centers have outside. So that's part of the reason why. But we have plenty to work with. We've got 9 out of the 12 months of the year as far as options are concerned. So things to consider. Number 1 is you want to schedule to take the MCAT when you know that you'll have enough time to prepare. And that's a big one, namely because it's really easy to fall into this trap of saying, you know what, I need to take the MCAT by X date, regardless of the fact that I'm not, going to have nearly enough time to prepare for this thing, right? I've got school, I've got activities, I've got this, I've got that, but I'm just going to take it on this date. And I hear that a lot, and I've seen that a lot from students, and inevitably those students will generally postpone their exam. So as you start to think about when you're going to take the exam, you do need to factor in how much time you're going to actually have to prepare for this exam, which is my 5th point here, which is to plan your preparation. But really, it's coupled with the first point in that you need to make sure that you have enough time to be prepared, and then you have to make sure that you actually plan your preparation so that it all fits into all the things that you're going to be doing. Connected to that is that you don't want to take the MCAT when things are going to be busy in the other aspects of your life. I'm not talking about the preparation period. I'm talking about just school, right? Probably the worst time to take the MCAT is during finals weeks, right? So, you don't want to be taking an 8-hour exam when you're expected to also be taking finals. If you're working, whether you're in school or you're out of school and you're working, if it's professionally going to be a busy period of time, that's not when you want to go take the MCAT. And if you've got just personal things that are going to make your life busy, you don't want to be taking the MCAT. I hear this sometimes where students say, well, I'm going on a vacation for 2 weeks with my parents and with the family, and then I'm going to come back and take the MCAT. And my mind goes to, well, if you're going to go take that vacation, you're not going to really get a vacation because you're going to be thinking about the MCAT the whole time. Even if you're kind of well planned and prepared, you're still going to want to be doing things on those last couple days. Ravina, as far as how to know what group has which test centers, I said it at the beginning. Group A is basically the eastern half. Group B is the western half. Group C is everybody else. It's on the AMC website, though. So you can go and look up your specific state and see. There's a map, basically, that you can look up and see which zone you fall into. You either fall into A or B or neither of them, which means you fall into C, is what it comes down to. It's pretty much east and west of the Mississippi is what, there's some variance. That's why I don't want to say that directly, because there is some variance as far as where it is. But just check out the website. The AMC website will show you which location or which group you fall into, is what it is. The third part of all of this is it's important to not want to rush preparing for this exam, right? So this is kind of one of those key kind of problems that happens, where we hear this from students, we hear it from parents too, quite frankly, who say, my child has to take the MCAT by this date, and my question usually is why. There's no like bonus point at the end of the day for taking the MCAT early, right? You need to take the MCAT when you're prepared to take the MCAT. And you'll never feel 100% prepared, because nobody ever does, right? Even world-class athletes don't feel 100% prepared before they compete in something, right? But they feel really prepared, or they feel good about their preparation, as it were. There's always more you could do at the end of the day. But it's really easy to fall in this trap of, I'm just going to take the MCAT. I'm going to rush to take it so I get it done with, or I can get my application in earlier. That's not a good reason. You need to balance a lot of things, and you need to balance basically making sure that you have enough time to prepare, making sure that you are kind of not testing in a time that is busy with other things going on, and then having a plan as far as that preparation is concerned for the exam itself. And then fourth, making sure that you have in fact completed your prerequisite coursework, or will have completed your prerequisite coursework, ideally before you start preparing, but kind of in a worst case scenario, at least, a couple weeks or a couple months before you're going to be actually testing. I have too many conversations with students who say, I'm going to take the MCAT in May, but I won't have taken physics yet, or I will be finishing up my biochemistry, and in my mind I'm like, well, biochemistry, that's a pretty important one, so can you postpone it? Well, no, I can't postpone it because I need to test by this date. And I say, okay, well, if you're going to do that, like, there's other things that you're going to have to do in order to make sure that you're ready for this thing. So making sure that you have that kind of balance in play is going to be important. It's going to be a necessary kind of factor in all of this as things are coming through. So those are the top five, right? Really making sure that you're kind of considering all of the factors when selecting the actual test date as you're going through. Super, super important to kind of keep that in mind as things happen. If you have questions about that, by all means, let me know. Be more than happy to answer them as we go here. And if I don't answer your question, it's more likely than not because I know that I'm going to be talking about something coming up, and then we'll answer your question at that point in time. All right. So I want to do a little exercise, and this is an exercise that you can do on your own. I'm going to show you a couple examples so that you see what the thought process is. But more importantly, you can kind of start doing this right now live. Ideally, I would love for you to walk away from tonight's event having a good sense of when your MCAT is going to be, or when you're going to actually be taking your MCAT. So here's the thing. Ravina, that's a good question. Do I recommend signing up for more than one date in October in case you need to do it again? I'd love to be able to recommend that, but the system does not allow you to do that. You can only actually hold on to one spot for the MCAT at any given time. So if you register for, let's say, the June 12th exam, and then you change your mind and you want to take it in July, you first have to cancel the June 12th exam before you can go sign up for the July exam. So you can't hold more than one spot at a time, unfortunately. one note, and I think this is important for everyone to take note of, I would highly encourage you to read the MCAT Essentials Guide that is on the AMC website prior to registration opening. That's going to be a great source of information for you because it answers questions like these as well, like are things that you might not have thought of. It's a great resource and something to take into account as part of your plan, as the next couple of weeks as you lead up to registration, for sure. That's a good question. So no, Ravina, I wish I could recommend it because I would recommend it, but you can't do it. So I don't recommend it because you can't do it. Let's take a look at this calendaring exercise. And as I said, you can kind of play along at home. Let's pretend, just for fun, that I am a student who wants to take the MCAT in 2026. I want to take the MCAT before I apply, I put my primary application in, and I'm a student who is also pretty busy and taking a pretty full academic load, right? Is what it is. So all the information, Anna, for registration is available right now on the AMC website. So it's all out there. It's all out there. So everything is posted in terms of as far as registration is concerned. If you go to the MCAT registration site, all that information is already out, including this calendar, right? So this is also from there. So here's the way to look at this. So if I'm a student who is going to be applying this year, and that's an important kind of part of this equation, we have to think about this from the perspective also of the admissions timeline, right? So this is where things start to get a little bit more real. It's easy if you're taking the MCAT now and you're going to be applying in a couple of years, because the reality is that you can take the MCAT up to 3 years before you start med school and you'll be fine, right? They'll accept your scores. But if you're applying in the year that you are testing, in the year that you're applying, your application, and I'm not giving application advice here per se, but your application is considered complete when there is an MCAT score in place. So basically what that means is that if you don't have an MCAT score, the application is not considered a complete application, which means they're not going to start to consider you. So if you want to apply in the upcoming application cycle, right? So this would be the application cycle that will open in June. You basically want to have completed your MCAT, ideally before June, because it takes a couple weeks for your application itself to be verified. If you test in May, you can see the score release dates. It's on this page here, or it's on this screenshot here, but it's also on the AMC website, right? You'll still, even if you test May 20th, your scores will still, or May 30th, your scores will still be available, by June. So you're going to be fine in terms of that application. But if I'm applying and I want to be an early applicant, again, this is in our hypothetical scenario here. I want to be an early applicant. I want to apply in June. Then really any testing date that is after, right, that is June and beyond June are no longer applicable to me. So I can immediately mark those out, right? So now I'm in a situation where 4 of the 9 months are no longer options for me as far as the test date is concerned, okay? On the second side of it, you then have to say, okay, I need to test before May. That's basically what's happening here. But then you start thinking about kind of all the things that are going on. You say, well, it's the middle of September, and I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to start preparing now and testing in January. Maybe you do, right? Again, in my hypothetical scenario of our fake student here, January isn't necessarily going to be a great time for them. So now all of a sudden they're crossing out January and potentially even February. So what they're left with is 3 out of the 9 months. So very quickly you go from this abundance of test dates to a very finite window of time, this March, April, May window, which, has historically been the most popular time to test for the MCAT, right? Because it affords you the opportunity to start now as far as your preparation, give yourself about 6 to 7 months, including time for the holidays and all those things that are happening around you, finals that happen in December, sometimes in January, depending on the school that you go to. And it gives you kind of that flexibility with the timing. But now all of a sudden, we've got 3 out of 9 months that are available to us as far as test dates are concerned. And then we go and say, well, wait a minute, I've got finals during the last couple weeks of May. So I'm not going to be able to test there as well. So now all of a sudden, we've gone from 9 months of availability to really 2.5 months of availability. And if we look at the calendar, that's 6 plus 4, 10 test dates out of the 30 odd test dates that they have for the year. So all of a sudden what's happened is we've narrowed in on a very kind of defined period of time. And then it's a matter of working backwards and saying, okay, now let me start to consider those things that I listed out at the beginning as far as what personal responsibilities, professional responsibilities, and obligations, academic obligations do I have? Do I have enough time to prepare? Generally speaking, we recommend somewhere in the neighborhood of like 300, 350 total hours of preparation as far as the MCAT is concerned. That includes taking practice tests and all that stuff. You start to divide that out by even, 15 hours per week, and you're looking at a 20-week, 25-week period as far as studying for this exam. That's 6 months. So you have to start working backwards and say, well, it's already September. Let's call it September 15th, right? 6 months from September 15th, that's March 15th. Like, am I going to be ready? And then you have to realistically look at kind of what else is going on as far as your life and make sure that you're starting to find that good balance. And then also starting to consider, and this is where I will encourage each and every one of you to study for this exam one time and take it one time and be done with it. But the reality is that there is no such thing as a plan that goes perfectly to plan, right? There's no such thing as that. It doesn't happen in construction. It doesn't happen in engineering. It doesn't happen anywhere, right? There's no such thing as the plan that was, that everything went exactly according to plan, right? Ideally, that's what will happen. That's what you're striving for. But you have to be ready for contingencies along the way. And you may want to actually consider, well, if I will end up needing to retest, or if my trajectory of my score improvement is not moving as fast as I would like it to because I didn't have as much time to dedicate to certain things as I thought that I would have. You have to start considering those things, and you have to be looking at this from that perspective as well and allowing for those contingencies to fall into place. So maybe, yes, you do plan to test in March, but that gives you the opportunity, if you need to push back into April or into the beginning of May, right? So this is the thought process that you're going to need to go through over the next couple of weeks. The good news is you're all well ahead of the curve at this point. I mean, I will actually say, of all the free sessions that I've seen that are available online, this is the first one that's about, it's the first one that I could find that's about how to choose an MCAT test date. So the fact that the 50 of you or so, and there's more of you, I'm sure, watching right now on the various other channels, you're the early birds, which is great, right? So you're thinking about it early. So congrats for being here, right? This is, you're in the right place. The key is over the next couple of weeks to really kind of narrow this down and start thinking about, okay, this is what actually is going to make sense, right? I'm not expecting that you have all your answers here today. I mean, in an ideal world, you would all leave here knowing which day you're going to take the MCAT. But, this will start to give you a good general sense of how to start kind of carving out this path, as it were, if you were planning on testing this coming year. Second alternative, or second example, right? Just another scenario for you. let's say, and I'm sure many of you are in this boat, give me a thumbs up or something in the chat if you are, where you already know that, look, I'm not testing until the summertime because I'm going to be busy with school. I've got too much going on. I don't want to even tackle this thing until later down the line. Fine. That means everything for January through May is out, right? It's all out. So you're not testing in those months. And then you have to consider, okay, well, if I'm not testing in those months and I'm going to test in June, will I have had time to prepare, in April or March, April, and May to test in June? And the reality is probably no. So you're probably not testing in June and you're probably not testing in July. If you start your MCAT prep kind of in earnest and do an intensive study as far as the summer is concerned, then you can test in August and September. In fact, today is Wednesday, so the next couple of days are the final two administrations of the MCAT for 2025, and so we'll say goodbye to the 2025 test dates. So, moral of the story here is really it's about kind of balancing all those things out, figuring out what's going to be right for you, what's going to make the most sense for you as far as timing is concerned, and take it from there. Let's go to some questions. I see a couple questions that are coming in here. So, Mahesh, if the MCAT preparations are not yielding a target score, can you cancel or postpone the date? You can. I mean, at the end of the day, even if you decide not to cancel your MCAT administration, you can still cancel it by just not showing up, right? I mean, let's be frank. Like, no one from the AMC or from medical schools is coming to your home and dragging you to the testing center and saying, you've signed up to test today. If you just don't show up, you just don't show up. Is what it is. But yes, you can cancel, you can postpone. There are obviously fees involved with that, right? That you have to pay. There are various kind of, if you cancel by this date, you get this much back. If you cancel by this date, you get this much back. So yes, you can. And plenty of students do that, right? And that's what I was alluding to earlier, is that sometimes, the trajectory isn't as strong as you were expecting it to be. That's kind of, that happens. So yeah, it is doable, is what it is. I wouldn't go into it, and this is kind of my personal opinion, just as far as how to approach all things. Don't go into it with this defeatist mentality of, oh, I'm going to postpone my exam. I don't know, it's suggesting that you or anyone is doing that. But sometimes that happens, right? You just go into things, you're like, oh, I know I'm not going to do well, so I'm just going to postpone it. Well, then why are you even planning on prepping for that date anyway, right? Like, why did you waste your time selecting that test date? Just choose another test date and practice accordingly. So that's something to consider as you're looking through this. But yes, I mean, no plan goes perfectly. Sometimes things have to get moved around. That's totally fine. Rekha, as far as how many weeks of preparation, I'm not going to give you a number, and here's the reason why. There's no such thing as the perfect number, right? In theory, right, we make a recommendation of about 300 to 350 total hours of preparation. I wouldn't do more than 10 or 15 hours in a week of MCAT, because that's already pushing it with all the other things that you have going on. But the reality is, if you have nothing else going on, yes, you could study for 25 hours in a given week. But it's not just about the number of hours that you're preparing. It's about the efficiency of the time that you're using to prepare. You can, don't get me wrong, I think Anki flashcards are great, right? They're fine. But if that's all you're doing for your MCAT prep, your score is probably not going to increase all that much, is what it comes down to. So that's something to look at. Emily, can students self-study psychology and sociology materials for the MCAT? Yes, especially if you don't have time to take the courses. There are plenty of free resources available as far as the content. We can help as far as tutoring is concerned once you're kind of done the initial go-around as far as that material is concerned. So yes, that is something that we offer. We offer tutoring, and specifically in subject matter tutoring, if it's your first pass through. So usually what we do in those situations is we'll, as you're learning the material, we'll tutor you through it so that you're comprehending it, and then transition into the actual MCAT tutoring and MCAT prep, as it were. as you're going through. So yeah, those two I think are doable. Physics gets a little bit less manageable. Biochem for sure, not as manageable, but again, doable if you're doing it. Sheila, you're very welcome. We love doing these things. If you're an older student with a family, school life is never going to slow down. How do you plan out a test date? That is a great question. I think you actually have your answer in the sense that at what pace you are able to accomplish things in terms of factoring this in. I know now we're saying let's add in one more layer and study for the MCAT. So the things aren't going to slow down. So you have to be realistic. And this is I'm being frank here in a good way. You have to be realistic and say to yourself, what can I really dedicate? And the last thing you want to do is say, you know what, I've got all these things going on. I'll find another 10 hours or another 15 hours per week. If all you've got is, let's say, hey, we can get 2-3 hours a week, fine. Let's plan accordingly. If you want to test in 2026, we're probably having a conversation about a September test date, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Is what it is. You have to take the MCAT when you're ready to take the MCAT, right? As I said earlier, never bonus points for taking it early as it were. So hopefully that answered your question. If not, ask a follow-up and I'll get it answered as best as I can. If you start studying in the summer, when should you take the exam? If you start in the summer, assuming that means June, you're probably looking at August and September as far as the earliest. If you can, I'd squeeze in a little bit of content review before the summer, just so that you, just so you can get a jump start once you start the MCAT prep in earnest. Kelly, as far as the last test date I recommend, if I plan to apply for the next cycle, I'm not going to make a recommendation because that's going to vary from student to student, right? Again, it would be bad of me to say you have to test by May so that your application is in and complete. But if that means that your score is not going to be great, then guess what? Your application's probably not going to go very far, right? So that's the that's the reality of things. So really, it's a lot of factors that come into play as far as where you're going to fall in as far as the process is concerned. That being said, there are plenty of applicants who test a little bit later and get interviews and get acceptances. There are plenty of applicants that tested earlier who didn't. Some did well, some did poorly, right, as far as the score is concerned. So there's a lot of factors that go into place. The ideal situation, so again, I'm talking, utopian ideal as far as MCAT and as far as the application is. The ideal is that you test by May so that when you apply in June and you put your application in during the first week, your application is considered complete, right? Even the more ideal, the greater ideal would be you test in March so you get your score back in April. So before you apply, you know what your score is, and you apply to schools that you think you have a good shot of getting into that you want to go to. So that's again the ideal, as it were. Karen, I'm not going to clarify what I think the prerequisite classes are to take. I'm going to tell you what the prerequisite classes are to take because the MCAT very clearly defines what the prerequisite classes or where the material has to come from. So if you go to the MCAT webpage, you can see all the content, all the concepts that are fair game as far as the MCAT. But generally speaking, it's General Chemistry 1 and 2, or 1A and 1B. So General Chemistry, year-long sequence of OChem, upper division biochemistry. That's the chemistry sequence. So 5 courses in the chemistry sequence for the MCAT. Physics 1 and 2, Bio 1 and 2. Really, you need more of the molecular and the cell biology, but you need the other stuff as well. Which one I forget? I said bio, I said physics, I said the chem sequence, and then psychology and sociology. Right? That's kind of the key. Those are the topics that are on the MCAT as far as material is concerned, as far as content is concerned. Emily, as far as best time to start tutoring, you could do it after the student is done self-studying for content. I generally recommend to start working with someone as soon as you know that you're going to want to work with someone. namely because, and I said this to a student earlier today. I don't know if she's here, but it's really easy to form bad habits, and it's really hard to break them. So, if you get into this mode of, and not that there's, and then the third part is there's no bonus points on the MCAT for studying on your own. If you get into this mode of studying and you start to form the bad habit, it almost is that there's more work to do because we have to undo the bad habits and then build up some good habits. So generally speaking, I would say as soon as you want to start working with someone, especially with us, we do everything very custom and bespoke to each student. So we kind of build everything out according to the needs of the student, as it were. There's some more questions over here. Never pick a date once they're starting to achieve their target scores. I mean, Sarah Lynn, sometimes people will delay. I generally recommend choosing a date, and if the target score you're not seeing the trajectory, the trajectory isn't quite there yet, then you can postpone. It's much easier to reserve an MCAT test and then cancel it than it is to try to find one later on. I mean, not to keep using the concert ticket analogy, but I've done this. I'm guilty of this, actually, where there have been a couple of concerts that I'm like, oh, I really want to go to that, but I'm not sure what my work travel schedule is going to look like. So I buy the tickets and then realize later, oh, I can't go, and then sell them effectively. I don't do the thing where I just sell them for face value, right? Just like, I bought them for this much, you give me that much, we're good to go. That's a lot easier to do than if I were to say, oh, let me figure out what my work schedule is going to be and then go and try to find those concert tickets if I was available. So that's kind of same thinking, as it were. Pega, as far as burnout, burnout's a real thing. So yes, absolutely. So you did burn out. Okay. Yeah, burnout's a real thing. I pause because this always worries me. The MCAT's just a test, right? Like, it's an important test, obviously. So it's a stressful one. The key with avoiding burnout is to take breaks. I mean, I'm not. It's easier said than done, right? It's easy for me to sit here and say, oh, take a break when things are going. But taking breaks and getting that right rest and that right kind of recharge is going to be a big, important part of it. And especially if you've been doing it for a long time, which it sounds like you were, just stepping away from it for a while is an important thing. I mean, I've said this a couple times just past week, right? Like, just step away from it, take a breather before re-engaging with the material, as it were. So I think that's kind of the key. The last thing you want to do is, and really to kind of take a step back and reassess what it is that you're doing, as it were. It's going to be an important part of it. Those are good questions, so keep them coming. I got a couple more things I wanted to show you before we part ways here. Couple top tips. So obviously today is September 10th. Registration doesn't open for 41 days at minimum. So you got some time with this, but here's some things that I want you to do. One, make a ranked list of your testing locations and of the dates. And the reason why I say testing locations is that, especially if you're in a metropolitan area, there may be multiple locations that you could test at. And there might be one that is kind of more favored to you. The last thing you want to be doing is having to fly to a location to take the MCAT. Some people do that, especially if flying or driving or traveling, I should say. Whenever I travel, I tend to fly. I don't really do road trips anymore. But I know that, that's still a thing. The reason why that's important is that, or to kind of keep in mind, is you will have to factor in any exhaustion just from the travel, right? So, I mean, if you're going to drive 4 hours, you got to make sure that you're, especially if you're crossing time zones, it's also really important. Sometimes testing elsewhere is good because that means you're going home, right? Like that's, so you get to see family, but then that also, no offense to any parents that are here, but I will say it, that may also add in additional stresses. It's not your normal routine, right? Like there are those things. So you do want to kind of consider all that. When you are building out your list and you're planning your registration, for instance, if you're going to be home over the summer and you're testing over the summer, then that's where you're going to test, right? Like that's where you're going to be studying, that's where you're going to test. Make sure that you know which testing location or where your test, which zone or which group your testing location is in, because you might be living in, zone A or group A and your testing location is in group B. So it's based on the testing location. That's when the registration is going to open. What you don't have to do between now and when the registration opens is to kind of wait on starting your MCAT preparation. If you know that, okay, I'm roughly, right now, I would say you're kind of in the rough category as far as the test date is concerned. You might not have it locked down to the day, but you're like, look, I know I'm testing in April, or I know I'm testing in May. You can already start, get started as far as, as far as the process is concerned. So, don't wait to get started on the MCAT preparation, even if part of your MCAT preparation now is just to build out a plan, and then that your like MCAT preparation in earnest starts in November, right? Like that's fine too, is what it comes down to. When it comes time to register, I will say this, and I'll say this, many, many times, register as soon as you can. So if you want to be testing in April, register on October 21st or 22nd or 23rd when your registration opens. Like don't wait for things. On the day of the registration itself, be ready for system glitches. I feel like every year there's something that happens, right? It's like, there's a line in Apollo 13 when the rocket is lifting off and one of the engines goes out. So, there are 5 engines and one of the engines goes out. And the Tom Hanks character, Jim Lovell, says, well, gentlemen, I guess that's our one problem for this mission. And it's, kind of a haha moment, because they're going to have a much bigger problem later on when the spaceship decides to stop working. So there's inevitably going to be some kind of system glitch is what there's going to be. So just be prepared for it. Don't freak out. If it's glitching for you, it's glitching for everyone, is what it comes down to. On the day of registration, and I know it's early to remember these things, but just take note of it. On the day of registration, you're going to want, before you go to register, well before you register, actually, you could start this October 1st, I think is the date. You can go and fill in your, the basic information, like your name, address, all those things. You can set up your AMC profile, is what it comes down to. That way, when it's time to register, you don't have to do all those steps. It's the equivalent, again, not to use concert tickets, but it's literally the exact same process. It's the equivalent of, having a Ticketmaster account that everything is signed up for. So all you have to do is click submit once you get the tickets, for that, for whatever concert it is that you're going to. So that's the key. The reason why I say have a ranked list of testing locations is so that you literally have it and you can just go down the list. Okay, this one's not open. Now I'm going to go to my next one. You don't want to be making decisions when registration opens. All those decisions should have been made already, right? You are literally just executing on that day of the actual registration. If for some reason you don't get the ideal test date, just keep checking back. Right, just keep checking back into the site. Don't keep checking back on the same day. Just check back the next day. Right, you don't have to do it all. You don't have to go kind of drive yourself insane watching the screen refresh. Right, but check back. It's amazing. People will sign up for dates and then decide to cancel. And as the testing dates get closer, as those registration deadlines, the refund deadlines approach, you'll see slots open up, is what it comes down to. So that's what it is. So then, as far as how many students can sit for a test at one time at any given testing location, that's purely up to the number of computers that the AMC has reserved for that testing location. So it varies. I mean, again, some metropolitan areas, the testing locations are huge and they have multiple rooms that people are taking tests in. I can't answer that. It's is what it comes down to, because I don't know. Like every location is different, is what it is. And then the last bullet point here, I mean, what I wrote on the screen essentially is what I'm going to say. Like if you know you're not going to want to test on a certain day, just decide early, right? That's what it comes down to. Like, just decide early is what it is, and reschedule right away. So, Rekha, you can. I mean, the testing locations aren't going to change, so you can see where the locations are now. So you'll have access to that if you want to. I don't know if you mean, can you physically go to the testing locations? Absolutely. They're not going to let you into the testing room, but you can go see what the place looks like. I will say that most places, most cities, you do not have the luxury of multiple testing locations. They're few and far between, where there's like, a few within a 20-mile radius or so. So just something to bear in mind. It's not like there's 20. It's not like bank branches, right? Where there's, even those are becoming less and less prominent, right, in our cities. But like, it's not like before where there was, I don't know, a Wells Fargo or a Bank of America or a Chase on every other corner, and you're like, well, I like going to this one as opposed to that one, right? So that's even now a dated reference, right? Because there aren't even those are even closing up, as it were. So, but yes, you could go to locations if you wanted to, for sure. Cool stuff. Good questions. Any other questions that you have as we kind of wrap things up here? I mentioned this earlier. If you are looking to get started on your test preparation, I myself have over a quarter century of experience preparing students for the MCAT and building programs and developing programs. That's why I'm here as VP for test preparation at med school headquarters. We're going to be doing more MCAT-y things over the course of the next year and a long time. So we're excited to have the opportunity to talk to you in situations like this. We didn't do any MCAT problems today, obviously, because we're talking about MCAT registration. But if you're looking and trying to figure out kind of what to do as far as your preparation is concerned, feel free to schedule time with me. You can use this QR code. This is, to find out a little bit more about our prep services. I'll be out of town for the next 2 weeks. So pretty much after MapCon, I'll be out of town for a little bit of a trip. But two of my colleagues will be kind of sitting in for me for the next couple of weeks. So schedule some time and talk to us. We can tell you about our programs. Obviously, you can go to our website, see what we have. Right now, we have tutoring services available. There's more to come in terms of other options that we'll have as far as MCAT prep is concerned. As far as materials, the one that I recommend is from the AMC. So you can't get any closer to the real thing than the actual AMC. So that's the reality of it. Kaplan used to be great, but then I stopped working there. So, no. If you want to just get those, they have books, right? Everybody has books, right? There's free books now available. So I won't make any recommendation, obviously, as far as like anything from one of the companies, but but as far as AMC practice materials are concerned, those are as real as it can get, right? From what it is. So. That all being said, if there are any final questions, you're all very, very welcome for sure. If there are any other questions, though, feel free to type those in, and we will answer them over the next couple of minutes. June, you can change your test. When you change your testing location, so to be clear, if you're signed up to take the MCAT at location X on June 15th, and you want to change to another location, you first have to cancel your full registration and then sign up for the new location, and hopefully on the same date, right? So it's you're It's not as simple as just saying, "Oh, I still want to test on this day, but I want to go to another location." They're not obligated to give you a spot. Sheila, yeah, our test preparation, our tutoring is the full package, right? So it's all the things. We build it out based on each student. So, it's a process is what it comes down to. So if you, depending on what your needs are, if you need more content, you need more strategy, we need to dive into something more specifically, we'll do that is what it comes down to. Some students, it's the opposite. Some students are like, look, I'm good on the content. I just don't know how to apply it. The MCAT never rewards you. It's the weird thing about the MCAT. It never rewards you for just knowing something. It rewards you for being able to apply it. So sometimes we have students who are like, look, I'm good on the content. I understand. I know it. I don't know how to apply it. Sometimes it's the opposite. I still don't understand this. Sometimes it's a mixture of the two. So yeah, it's everything. It's what it is. We've got a phenomenal team of faculty. I hired them all, not just because they scored well. They're all on my team because they're able to take really complex things and break them down into real simple, learnable chunks, as it were. Cindy, the tutoring right now is all one-on-one. Yeah, it's one-on-one tutoring. So the tutor and the student. So that is what we have today. More to come, but that's what we have today. Any other questions before we wrap up? I'll put that link back up so if anyone wants to grab the QR. That's up to you. We have 10-hour packages, 20-hour packages, 30-hour, 40-hour packages. If you sign up for 10, you need a couple more. You can get a couple more. We have a 5-hour package for just single subject tutoring. So, as far as the total number of hours, that's up to you as far as how many you want. Nice and simple. Nice and flexible. So somebody asked me that earlier today. My response is always, well, it expires when you start med school. So that's the, no. So, the question that you have, I think, is, do you have to use the hours by a certain date? And the answer is no. If we don't hear from you in a while, we might give you a call and be like, hey, what's going on? So, but no, it's, basically when, through your exam date is what it comes down to. And if you postpone your exam date, then it's there. But Sheila, the way that our tutoring works today is that it is a pure tutoring service. So we're not providing any questions, and we're not trying to fancy it up and be like, oh, we're giving you this many 1,000 questions and all that stuff. We're also priced accordingly. So we're not forcing a resource on you that you may or may not use. That being said, you will need to go get the AMC materials. And then if there's other stuff that you decide to get, or the student decides to get, then we'll work with you with those. But as of today, no, there's no material, but also priced accordingly. So we find it to work better when students say, this is what I would like to work with, right? As opposed to forcing something on the student. The only one that I won't even say force, but the only one that I strongly recommend, AMC materials, right? Because it's the AMC materials. So we will see you at MapCon. I have to drink a lot of. I'm on the West Coast, and my session is the first session, which is at 9 a.m. Eastern time. So I will need to drink a lot of coffee, and I don't drink coffee, so it'll be an interesting morning. That's what it'll come down to. You're all very welcome. Thank you all for joining us. It looks like we're right at the top of the hour, so see you all very soon. If you have questions, always feel free to reach out to us at mshq.com or .net. Thanks all.